Yo, 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 yo. Welcome to another great episode of Culture Junkies Live. I'm your host, Kenshiro. We are live with episode 237 on the dial. Today is all about the 90s. The 90s strikes back, or it came from the 90s. I forget how we named this show. But basically, it's all 90s, all show. We're reminiscing about games, movies, TV shows, and probably a sprinkle of other pop culture stuff there in between. But before I get too far ahead of myself, I'm introducing someone on the show with me today. Across from me is wearing the Austin 316 shirt, the great Mr. GQ.
You need a new intro. I'm just letting you know. That's all right, though. You'll be all right.
To the right of me is the great Adakuji.
Hi, everybody. It's me again. See, don't you know?
And from remote, Mr. Fallen Marvel. How's it going, everybody?
I am doing very, very well. So, yeah, let's talk about some...
No, like, everybody's wearing, like, appropriate 90s attire. Like, GQ's got 316. Mm-hmm. You've got Cowboy Bebop, which came out in the 90s as well. And let me see your shirt.
There's no 90s.
There's no 90s, but hey, it works.
This is what you could do in the 90s.
That's true. My perfect day. Wake up, play video games, eat breakfast, play video games, eat lunch, play video games, eat dinner, play video games. Sounds good.
That would have been... Let me see. In the 90s, we was all, in
teenagers?
In our teens.
Yeah, that's a perfect summer day.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, it's a summer day right there. You know? Perfect summer day. Anyway, let's run the gamut.
Run the gamut.
I threw that shit before I walked in the room.
All right, well, I got one, and it's the worst one of all. Sean Connery passed away this past weekend.
Yes, it is.
And, that one actually kind of felt
that one hurt for you.
It didn't really, damn, that's feel bad, man.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like...
It's like one of them
best Bond.
It's like one of the ones that you knew was coming for like the longest time, but still it just hits you. Same thing with Stan Lee, right?
Well, no, Stan Lee is definitely hurt, but because it's like you knew you was gonna get a cameo of him in some of the upcoming films. It's like, damn, that. And what they did in Captain Marvel really was like, dude, they replaced the whole intro with just his stuff. I'm like, oh, that was nice.
Yeah,
but for them to lose Sean like that, man, that hurt.
I will never, ever, 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 ever forget the intro in Dr. No. Like that, I swear that was the coolest shit ever. Like
Three Blind Mice intro?
No. His introduction as Bond. That shit was the coolest shit ever. Like just the way he was like, I mean, just the cool way that he was just nonchalant. He was like, name's Bond. James Bond. I was like, dude. I was like, that's so cool. I was like, I've heard other people do it, but nobody did it like he did.
Well, yeah, and then going back to he should have been in Skyfall. Like he should have been that old groundskeeper in Skyfall. It should have.
That'd have been nice to
gave him whatever he asked for to be in that particular role, because that would have been awesome.
Yeah.
But so once we lose Betty White, I'm really gonna be sad.
Yeah.
She's gonna live forever, man. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, so I got one. And this one is actually in reference to the shirt that you're wearing. So everybody knows about that, that award-winning, very super popular Chicago Bulls documentary, The Last Dance, that aired on ESPN this summer. Well, the producers of The Last Dance are doing one on Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Which would be interesting.
Yeah, that should be pretty interesting. And, I mean, it'll be interesting to see from the standpoint of his rise, coming from WCW, flaming out there, going to ECW, like creating kind of like the persona that ended up being Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then his blow up on the WWE or WWF as it was called at the time, and just the whole Attitude Era and just how he carried it forward, and then eventually his thing with The Rock.
A lot of those guys owe Paul Heyman like a big hug and a handshake.
Oh yeah,
Paul Heyman put a lot of those guys on.
Yeah,
as far as getting their characters right and getting Steve obviously was saddled with that stunning Steve Austin thing in WCW.
That was so unfortunate.
That
was so unfortunate.
Yeah,
that whole thing was so unfortunate. Oh my God,
it was like, dude, that just doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Dido had one as well for the gamut. So.
What you got, Dido?
Well, there was a trailer apparently that was put up by Schneider was his name. First name.
Zach.
Zack Schneider. Yeah, for
Zachary.
his version.
I love how he has a German twist to his name, Schneider. Like Elsa Schneider.
I mean, isn't Schneider a German name?
No, it's Snyder, dude. Snyder, not Schneider.
Schneider is all derived from the same thing. He probably, whoever his ancestors got onto Ellis Island, they just wrote it down how it Schneider. That's how
Anyway, go ahead.
apparently, he put a trailer up, and Warner Brothers said no. So it is possible to erase stuff from the internet because, from what I've been told, Warner Brothers took that trailer off of every single thing that they could have. And
Was that right?
So we don't. I don't know what it is. I didn't even know it dropped, but apparently some people watched it.
Yeah. I found it very interesting that supposedly this was due to music licensing. Now I don't know if this was the original one that they showed during like the initial DC showcase, but apparently they said that, and I don't see how this is possible, but they didn't have the licensing to use the music for said trailer.
Okay.
Like, wait a minute. What?
Okay, hold on. Now,
That's the official statement.
Well, no, I get you, but let's be realistic here. Now, if Snyder, because what I heard is Snyder cut the trailer himself, like he did the editing and put it together.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
granted, he probably grabbed a really good song and made it work, like any editor would do. Mm-hmm. Warner Brothers has the money to get the rights to whatever song he used, so it's something else, man.
Yeah, that's so weird.
And that kind of segues into what I have for the Gambit.
Oh, well, here we go.
Now-
look at us segue in and stuff.
Now, for those that are still kind of taking count, Toby Emmerich recently was named as being the sole person at Warner Brothers that is going between the DC stuff, HBO Max, all that stuff. Basically, all green light power goes through him. And there's been some rumblings under the around the campfire that when the whole Snyder cut thing actually happened, Toby was not on board with it. So with him kind of getting in that space now, yeah. And here's another caveat. Because of this, and I find it ironic now, he's also been added to basically the next name that Ray Fisher has added to issues.
Oh, real?
Now. Yes.
Oh man, this
Now-
whole
now-
oh my
now,
god.
This was after he already got named, got bumped up in WB with all this stuff. But now all of a sudden his name is dropped in it, and now he's saying there were racist conversations between them now.
Okay, hold on.
Oh no, see, this is Ray Fisher saying this now. Now he really playing with fire now.
Well, hold on. Who's this other person?
Toby Emmerich is essentially the Kevin Feige of DC now. It seems like.
Yes,
DC project.
he's been a WB employee for quite a while. I think he was one of the other execs or whatever. But he's been with the company for quite a while. So, but within the last, I think, week and a half, like he was basically the one. He's the Kevin Feige now. Like all media green light stuff or whatever, and all that goes through him now.
Okay, but his name is Toby though, so I mean that's
Don't clown him for
that's
his name,
asking
man.
for like a whole bunch of racist comments to come your way after Roots. Kunta Kinte. Good stuff. What's up, Mr. Rigor Mortis? How you doing there, sir? Appreciate you coming in, checking in. What's up, Big Preem? Big Preem.
Sharita Jackson. Nice to see you all. Yeah, that Ray Fisher thing is very interesting. We're gonna have to keep an eye on that. But to keep the show rolling, we're gonna move on to the first subject from the 90s. Daito.
Well, as everybody knows out there, that I like me some video games, and man, in the 90s, I think was the biggest heyday. Like the 80s, when it came to arcades, that's where they began. Everybody went to the arcades, popped in their quarter, but you had just games that were, point based. You had Pac-Man, you had Donkey Kong, you had Space Invaders, you had stuff like that. But not until the 90s where you really started to see not only great graphically looking games in arcade. You got your Street Fighter 2, you got your Mortal Kombat, you got your Virtua Racing, you got your Daytonas, you got your Ridge Racers, you got your Tekkens. I could go on for a long time. And
Yeah,
that's
that was
just
all in the 90s.
A few genres there. There was so many Dance Dance Revolution for people who like those
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
You know, the 90s, when it came to arcades, was the golden era, I think I would call it.
You know what? It's hard to disagree with that. I mean, honestly, it really isn't. It's like whether you go to your local putt-putt that had an arcade, whether you go to your local mall, Main Street Arcade, or any other, whether you have a standalone arcade. Like in town, we had Wizards, we had Roscoe's, we had
Schmitty's.
Yeah, Schmitty's. Marvin's even was a good one for a while.
Spot.
But the arcade in the 90s just had a plethora of stuff really for you to get at. So what would, to me, I mean, we all know that
Final
GQ, we had, your favorite was fighting games.
Yep.
And that was like 90s. That was like that was the 90s, like big time. That was like the biggest genre in the 90s for the longest time. But outside of fighting, what else was kind of like your favorite games to play in arcades back in the day?
Well, we had a couple of good arcades, and while you guys are in the chat, make sure you let us know some of the stuff that you guys played in the arcades, and sound off for sure. But yeah, I mean, we had Wonderland Mall, so Wonderland Mall had
Main Street Arcade.
yeah, it was just like Main Street Arcade, Red Baron. There was a whole bunch of different
Red Baron.
whole bunch of different arcades,
Yeah.
and one of my favorites was actually at Lakeside. It was called Tilt. Tilt was a was a super high end arcade at the time.
was.
It was one of the first. Actually, it was the only, I think, in Michigan, at least early on, that had the Sega Coliseum game, which was that hologram game.
The Cowboy one?
Yep, they had that, and then its sequel. They had, God, what else? I mean,
We'll bring Solid X in the chat with that one. The Butterfly.
oh yeah,
Oh,
Butterfly
yeah,
was definitely
Butterfly.
good, which is unfortunately a Menards now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Menards in the check. No, the Turtles arcade game was awesome. Double
Okay.
Dragon, even though that's going a little bit further back, but I mean, obviously it was still in the arcades at the time. So
Yeah.
I mean, like a lot of the coin-op beat 'em ups was like a lot of fun. The X-Men arcade game was also all sorts of fun. So I mean, outside of fighting, like I pretty much played a little bit of everything when it came down to it. But fighting is, eventually what I would gravitate towards for the end of the day.
Fallen, what you got?
For me, it was always a tricky thing because it's like I would always come across arcades sparingly whenever like I went out or just happened to be with my mother like on an errand or something or whatever. So I would say the most like wow like moment for me is arcades when we went on a field trip somewhere, and then we went to the mall. Went to a mall afterwards for food or whatever. Like our school district was cheap.
They took
But
y'all to
they
the
had-
mall? Like, y'all on a school field trip, they took y'all to the mall? That's wild.
They did it after the field trip.
But still, that's like, okay,
It
go
was,
ahead.
Like I said, our school district was cheap, but that was the first time I came across the X-Men versus Street Fighter arcade. And,
There you go.
Okay.
So it was like, whoa, wait a minute, this exists. So it was like, like that was kind of like where I just wanted to like have more involvement with arcades, but it was just one of those things where it was kind of like a fleeting moment in my prepubescent life. So
yeah, Mr. Rigor Mortis is in the chat. He mentioned the Polygon driving game. Now, there was actually, technically, I guess you could say there were kind of two. I mean, you could kind of say Daytona was a Polygon driving game a little bit, but he's probably talking about virtual racing.
Or what about hard driving?
Or hard driving. Hard driving and race driving.
Hard driving might be the one he's talking about.
Yeah, it might be. You're right. You're right.
You saw hard driving and race driving more often than
Because,
you saw virtual.
dude, them games was hard as hell, dude.
Well, hard driving's supposed to be hard. That was the whole point.
Yeah, it was like, that was like
It had an
authentic.
actual key ignition.
Yep.
It had force
Stick and a
feedback.
clutch.
Yeah, like everything was transferred over.
Right, you remember like when you were a kid, like you didn't know how to drive a clutch at all. If you didn't know how to operate that car, you just wasted $1. Like basically, you couldn't even start the damn car.
All right, King Takeem said they had Tilt in St. Louis over there. That's awesome.
interesting.
Of course, Wolverine Solid X would definitely mention the X-Men game. That one's
Of
almost a
course.
given.
Yep.
Big Preem and Mr. Rigmore just going back and forth about that
Talking
Michael
about
Jackson Moonwalker.
Yeah.
Which, that was interesting. That game was always interesting. Oh, okay, King Takeem with the light gun games, Virtual Cop.
I
Oh, heck yeah.
liked it better on Genesis though. I have to admit, I liked Moonwalker better on Genesis.
It was a completely different game.
It was, but I still, I know. I'm just saying I liked it better on Genesis. So, Mr. Riverman is saying, y'all remember the first GTA, which was a top-down kind of like driver game. Reminded you of APB.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, reminded you of APB back in the day.
Before Grand Theft Auto hit Part 3 and became the whole...
Yeah, whole nother thing.
Outrun was a good one. Area 51. Oh, God.
Outrun.
Yeah.
Speaking of Outrun, you see what they said about that's the first driving arcade one-up machine that's getting ready to come out?
I saw about that too.
You gonna get it? I would. I loved Outrun more for the music really than the game itself, but the music was great. Outrunners was better. Outrunners was definitely better.
Outrun 2, I think, is probably the best one of all of them, and it came out in arcade, but it's heavily remembered on PlayStation 2 and Xbox. But that's out of the 90s, so you got to go back. So I think Outrun was actually an 80s game.
What's up to Mike Oliver over there in the Facebook chat? How you doing tonight?
Yeah, what's up, man? So speaking of shooting games, so there was a couple of shooting games in the 90s that kind of stood out to me. One was Terminator 2.
Of course.
Which also reminded me of the other game that I'm bringing up, Operation Wolf.
Operation Wolf was a good one.
Was that the 90s?
That was probably late 80s.
Was it late 80s?
Because that was one of the first games. Well, not the first, but I mean, it was the first one that had the first feedback type gun with it.
Okay.
I think that was it. Somebody could check it.
All right, my mistake.
I think that's Sharita brought up a really good gun game, House of
House
the Dead.
of the Dead. Yes.
House of the Dead was a good one.
Yes.
Going back to the Area 51.
Time Crisis.
Yeah, Time Crisis was good. Going back to the Area 51 era. You also had Revolution X, which was a very, very...
Was that the Aerosmith game?
Kind of. No. Well, it might have been, but it was literally like similar to Area 51. You had digitized people popping up and you were shooting them.
Now, King Takeem was bringing up the Afterburner cabinet, but that was more 80s. That was back in the 80s when Afterburner 2 came out.
Afterburner was the 80s.
Yeah.
Hang-On was the 80s.
R360 was 90s, though.
Yeah. R360.
You rarely.
Was G-Lock 90s?
Yeah, probably.
G-Lock was 90s? Okay.
More than likely. Now, the one that I'm surprised nobody has mentioned is
Typing
of the Dead.
That's in the 2000s.
No.
House of the Dead 2 was probably also 2000s.
No.
That was an arcade game?
No.
Nope. Yes.
It was?
I think they might even brought it over here because I was in the arcade in Vegas in 2003, and I saw Typing of the Dead there. Our buddy Will was living out there.
No
I don't
kidding.
remember if it was the Japanese version or not, but it was in the arcade.
That's crazy.
So Mr. River Martyrs brought up Metal Slug, but another one I was going to bring up.
Metal Slug games are good.
Yeah, Metal Slug games are good. Another ones I was going to bring up was Pit Fighter.
Yeah, Pit Fighter.
Pit Fighter was fun.
Yeah,
it was definitely a good one.
Hey, were you guys like familiar with the Baby Pac-Man arcade that was connected to the pinball?
Yep,
machine?
that was definitely
I don't remember
late
it connected
80s,
to a
but
pinball machine.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It was basically a Baby Pac-Man game. What it was is you played pinball. And then, like you get to a point where the pinball would be held. Then once the pinball is held, it would switch to an actual Pac-Man game that was right above the machine.
Really?
Literally a second screen above the machine.
Interesting.
And you played that.
That was at a laundromat that my mom used to go to.
Wait a minute. The corner stores and laundromats had some. I spent a lot of time at the corner store playing Street Fighter.
First time I ever played Street Fighter was at a 7-Eleven on 9 Mile.
So another good staple that some people talk about a lot with arcade games that you wouldn't think would kind of stand out sometimes are the sports games. So Double Dribble I know was like back in 1986. You still had they had Super High Impact Football.
You had Arch Rivals.
You had Arch Rivals.
Yep.
You had Blitz, which was the king.
Blitz came, I think, I don't think that was 90s, dude.
It was 90s.
Oh yeah, it was.
Blitz was 90s because that was after NBA Jam.
You're about Pigskin before Blitz.
I do remember Pigskin. I do remember.
It was like medieval.
What was that other one that came out? It was it wasn't Mutant League Football. They had one like it in the arcade. But I don't know what it was called.
Was it Was it
Cyberbots.
Cyberbots.
That's what it was.
Yeah, Cyberbots. I used to love that game.
That
My
game was
brother,
awesome.
that game was awesome.
That game was really
That
good.
game was awesome. Yes, yes, you're right. All right, so cool. That was a lot of really cool arcade stuff.
There's definitely more.
There's definitely way more, but the only reason we didn't talk about more games in this segment for the 90s is because our next show is going to be about the console wars, which was actually a really big proponent of the 90s. So make sure you come back next week and check out that show. But for right now, we're going to move on to another subject, comics.
From the pages of.
All right, so the 90s was pretty big for comics. And some people say that it was this era that kind of really sent Marvel to the poorhouse. Right before because and I'll explain why. The period in the 90s was a big boom and bust for the comic book industry itself. Whether it be Marvel or DC, back in those days, it really was a two-person race. It was literally only the big two. It was Marvel, DC. You were either one or the other. There was no in between. Harris Comics wasn't really publishing anything. The indie guys were pretty much doing exactly what they're doing right now and getting no love. But the 90s did see the rise of Image, which was also a big deal, big deal in comics. But so I wanted to turn over to the table. What was the most memorable stuff from the comic books that came out in the 90s? Like the most memorable things that you remember concerning comics from back in the 90s. GQ, let's start with you.
Death of Superman, Wolverine getting his adamantium pulled out.
Yes,
those two.
The two biggest events.
Yeah, two biggest things. I don't know. Superman dying, I was kind of like happy that it happened because it's like about time you finally made the character do something besides just be annoyingly overpowered.
Dude, that was something that made like the national news.
Yeah, it made news.
It was national news. It was
a huge event.
DC killed Superman. Like, what? What are you talking about?
But it worked. Though.
It did.
It was a good thing. Then they brought him right back, so it kind of negated all of it. Made it pointless.
Didn't they bring him back as like two separate Superman?
No,
The
no,
red
four.
and the blue one.
Four
different
Superman.
Was that before
Superman.
or after the red and blue Superman?
That was red and blue was before.
And then
No,
it
red and blue was after.
was after. Then that's when.
Oh yeah, no, red and blue was after he came back.
Yeah.
They killed him first. That was like in 1992, I think.
92.
Yeah, it was 1992. They killed him. They put Clark on the shelf for a year. A whole calendar year. And they had the Eradicator, they had Cyborg Superman, they had Superboy, and they had Steel.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Stop it. You just stop it right now. You stop it right now.
Yes, who played him?
Ruin John Henry.
Right, just stop it.
hey.
Just stop it.
Batman getting his back broken was a big event.
It was a big event.
But Superman dying was bigger than that. And
Much bigger.
Wolverine is still one of my favorite characters, and Magneto ripping his skeleton out was just awesome. Well, the adamantium rather.
Christopher Harkey is right. In the early 90s, that was when Joker took a crowbar to Jason Todd.
That was in the 90s as well.
Yeah, it was like 1991.
Oh wow.
It was either 1990 or 1991. It was like 1990 or 1991.
All this time.
Yeah.
Let me see. Let me. I have to look that up.
He was like, which one hurts more? Your hand.
Dude, that shit was wild.
I like the fact that they let the
audience, the readers determine
decide
that.
on one. That was back when like companies used to do stuff like that.
Man got upset after the results. This is
King Takeem said Kyle Rayner became Green Lantern.
Oh,
so
no.
that's cool for him.
Nope. You're right. Father Marvel was right. That was 1988 when that happened.
Yeah. See, I
So
thought
that does
was
not
late
count.
80s.
That does not count. That does not count. All right. So another thing that kind of, and King Takeem actually brought this up earlier, and you even mentioned this before, was those foil covers that they had back in the 90s.
Yep.
The foil covers and even the lenticular, was it lenticular or the hologram ones?
Dude, they had everything.
They
had
did- they
hologram,
really
had
did.
Lenticular, they had foil, they had, they was trying basically everything. I remember even like one of the books, like it had like rub the blood or something. Basically it was like the book was printed matte, and then the blood on the cover of the book is printed in gloss. I'm like, it's like, dude, y'all are just trying everything.
I seen something like that. I think like a couple years ago, and I kind of hate that I didn't get it. Was they had this Venom comic book that had like the logo that glowed in the dark,
We are.
and That was just like I still hate I didn't get it when I saw it, but like I thought it was interesting that they had like a Venom comic where his logo glowed in the dark.
Oh yeah, Lethal Protector.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now
I never got it.
Now, speaking of this, and this was something that Dido was very surprised to hear, but what I just brought up and all the stuff that GQ was talking about was exactly what led to the fall of Marvel. The oversaturation of the special covers, the foil covers, the lenticular ones, the multiple printings in trying to basically artificially balloon the speculators market. Because
they do that now.
They do it now, but back then was when it really started. Because there was this guidebook for resellers that used to be, it was almost like a Bible that was used in the cons. I think it was like was the Overstreet comic book price guide.
Overstreet,
yeah.
Overstreet is the main one.
Yeah, Overstreet comic book price guide. And they basically would, all the speculators would run and say, hey, I got this cover and it's supposed to be worth this much. And, none of the book dealers were buying it for that. So they were overprinting and they weren't, there was no demand for all of this stuff.
The thing is, people, and this is the reason I got into graded books. You need a standard. You can't just say, I have this and and it should sell for this. Like, no, this ain't no Kelly Blue Book. It's like even Kelly Blue Book still takes into account the condition of your car. So it's like if you have a lenticular book that just happens to have a couple of pages dog-eared, guess what? Your book ain't gonna be worth as much as mine is in good condition.
Exactly.
So people need to understand that, and then I think Overstreet put a lot of people in a position of thinking, oh, it says this, it should be this. Like, no, that's not how it works. And even still, just like on Pawn Stars, they got to make their money too. So they definitely ain't gonna buy it for you at market value.
Right, exactly. Another thing that Hannah Omega actually brought up was a big event. The marriage of Lois and Clark was one big deal.
He said Lewis and Clark. But I don't know.
He's corrected himself afterward and said Lois and Clark. But
I didn't know Lewis and Clark rolled like that, man. I thought he was out there doing adventures and exploring, but damn.
But Superman was second to the altar. Spider-Man beat him first because Spider-Man and Mary Jane were married in the 80s. So he wasn't the first one to get married. But Lois and Clark getting married was a big deal. And I saw in the comments they were mentioning Wizard magazine. Wolverine was saying that
first Wizard.
Wolverine was saying Wizard came later. No, it started in the 90s.
Yep.
It started in the 90s.
Yep.
And became like the must-read book for every comic book fan or even casual comic book fan that would read Wizards. Wizard magazine, because it was a great magazine. It really was. So another thing, probably even the biggest most. How do I want to put it?
It was a coup.
Want to call it a coup, or
it was a coup. Image Comics coming around because it was some disgruntled.
I was going to more say an industry-shattering event.
No, it was a coup. It was literally a bunch of people that was disgruntled, didn't like how Marvel and various other companies was treating them. Let's do our own thing, and they did it. It didn't last forever because things don't always last forever.
Image is still around.
No, Image is still around, but as far as the concept of it, because it's like, okay, you can have a bunch of creative people. Where's the accountant? Where's the manager? Because it's like there's nothing wrong with having a bunch of creativity, but you still got to have that structure that's gonna make dollars and cents. Schedule, because a lot of them Image books was always late. Always late, dude. Be like Max number 4 is about to drop, and then 4 months later, Max number 4 is coming. It's like, dude, I'm done now. I don't even want to read it no more.
So it was essentially I think it was like we say an assortment of 6 superstar artists and maybe a couple of artists that weren't quite as well known that broke off and formed Image. Eric Larson, Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld.
No feet.
Liefeld. No feet Liefeld.
And Pockets.
Mark Silvestri.
Yep.
Will Sportatio, and I forget. I think that was it. I don't think there was anybody else.
Well, hold on. Chris Harkley said there should have been a topic on trading cards in the 90s.
It should have been
potentially, but here's one thing that I did. Here's one thing that I did get into in the 90s, only because it was like, dude, I'm in college and I ain't got nothing else to really do with my money because I can't drive nowhere. But no, Overpower. Marvel Overpower.
Oh, I remember that
I
game.
used to play the hell out of that.
Yeah, I remember that game.
Because that was like right around 94, 95-ish or whatever. I jumped.
Yeah.
Man, me and my dorm roommates and all that got into that. We was playing the hell out of that.
Yeah, I remember that game.
Some of the collectible card stuff came around, of course, in the 90s. I never got into Magic. I never got into some of the other
I
ones.
wish I had got into Pokemon. I would have just been, and the only reason being, like, you scrunch up your face, whole boxes of Pokemon cards unopened. They're selling for like $20,000.
Oh yeah,
bro.
Pokemon cards are
I wish,
super valuable.
Yeah,
dude.
I wish I'd have been like just buying them and leaving them in the box, and I'd actually play the game, leaving the wrapper.
But no, going back to it, and I want to get Marvel in because Marvel's been sitting there all quiet and just nodding. You know, he got a lot to say. The man has a file cabinet of comics behind him.
Sure does.
But Image was the birth of too many damn pockets and pouches and all that other stuff.
Was when I was Rob Liefeld.
Yeah,
That was Liefeld, yes.
No feet, Liefeld, and a bunch of pouches. That's what that man was all about.
Yeah, he started that shit with X-Force, man. It was wild.
Goodness. But Marvel, go ahead, man. I'm gonna let you close it out for real because you know you are definitely one of the resident comic guys.
For sure. So, the first time I got bit by the comic bug, I think was around. It might have been around 95 because this was like after. It was definitely after 95 because I remember the Power Rangers the movie came out already, so like that was out, and they had a comic book line of that for a while. I don't know how long it lasted, but I remember going to whatever pharmacy it was or whatever when they used to sell comics. And
Oh man, remember that?
Yeah, Fagin Pharmacy.
When they used to sell them on those little round table newsstands.
Yeah, them books was more junk.
It really wasn't.
Nothing. All of them, every single one of them was bent. Like, come on, dog.
Right. So like I think they were like $2 at the time. Like probably like $1.50, $2 at the time. I got like a couple of those, and that was when I had bought my first Spider-Man comic. And it just so happened to be a What If comic, which I didn't know anything about because whatever. But it was, I think this was like after the conclusion of the Clone War, the Clone Saga, and it was what if Scarlet Spider killed Spider-Man. And it's like that was like me kind of like really getting like wow, this is actually really interesting because, you know, again, up to this point, Spider-Man, a cartoon, the Spider-Man animated series and all this stuff, whatever, that's as far as comic book know-how I knew. So me actually having a comic book and like this stuff actually going down, it was like, damn, this is like a action movie on paper. Like, what is this, you know? So it's like ever since then, I've always been bit by, you know, the comic bug, you know, with wanting to collect, but I wasn't able to do that until I became grown and been able to make my own money. So as you can see by the file cabinet behind me, which is
Exactly. Man over there looking like Denzel in an American Gangster. Open his file cabinet, got just a bunch of comic books in there and whatnot. But I mean, hey, comic books is still money though. So I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Speaking of real quick, just to close it out, even though this isn't necessarily a 80s or 90s thing particularly, but how much did you pay for your first comic? If you can remember, like what was the cover price of your first comic that you bought?
It might have been $1.25.
All right. How about you, Dido? If you remember any that you may have picked up.
I do not remember it. I do remember Comic Archives used to be right on the corner of where I used to live,
Plymouth.
Yeah, and I remember buying the Silver Surfer comic out of there. I think it was Silver Surfer. It might have been part of Infinity War, but I don't really remember because I remember Silver Surfer.
You remember what it was about?
I vaguely remember Silver Surfer being in it. I vaguely remember seeing a whole bunch of what looked like dead bodies on what looked like
That was definitely Infinity Gauntlet. Definitely Infinity Gauntlet.
But it's kind of like it's fuzzy. So I don't remember how much.
That's fair. That's fair.
It had to be like 1990. So
man, my first one that I bought, and you all have seen it, is that Superman #1 reprint, and that cost me 50 cents. And the first other book that I bought on that same day was an X-Men Classics. I believe it was X-Men Classics #8, and the cover price on that was 75 cents or something like that.
You speaking of covers, and I forgot to mention to close it out on comics. In the 90s was the #1 most selling comic of all time, X-Men #1. The Jim Lee cover.
Jim
the
Lee cover,
the
definitely.
gatefold cover.
Spawn was up there too.
Yep.
Spawn was in there, and
Spawn was
also
up there too.
Wait, $2.50 Canada price for John P. What are you talking about? Oh, $2 a pop. Oh, well, realistically, yeah, that was the one crazy thing. The comics price gouging, basically. them lenticular covers and the holographic. That's when all of that started.
Yes, man.
Because all of them books. Like back in, like right around that era, $1.50 was kind of the hit.
Yeah.
$1.50, $1.75,
Yeah.
that was probably
Yeah.
usually it. And then they jumped
Like
like
crazy.
crazy.
Like crazy.
75 cents.
Oh, 75 cents from Mr.
Harrison
Martin over there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, see, 75 cents though. That's like late 80s.
No, and that's fine. Like I
Yeah.
said, that's why I threw it out there because again, like I was obviously buying before a lot of the people in the chat because I'm older than you,
Right.
so I'm
Right.
saying.
Yeah.
But no, that's cool though. So this is an awesome topic, y'all, and definitely in the chat because Milestone Comics also came about in the 90s.
Milestone Comics came out. Malibu Comics came out. Ultra Force.
Yeah, man.
Prime. Yeah.
Top Cow. There was a lot. There was a lot
going on back then. Yeah, there was a lot. But we got a lot more to talk about. If you want to revisit this, we'll come back to it and the power is yours. But we're going to talk about movies and TV now. Now, movies and TV. There's a lot to talk about. Obviously, we could separate these two, but for the sake of time, we kind of merged them together. We could talk about movies first. The 90s. 90s, I think, was full of really bad movies.
Bad comic book movies.
Really bad
game
comic book
movies.
movies.
Bad comic book.
Hold on. There was a good one in the 90s.
Mortal Kombat, okay.
No, not video. I'm talking about comics. Blade was in the 90s.
Blade did come out 98.
But I was kind of leaning to that. I was trying to say in the very early 90s to like late 90s.
Early 90s was trash.
Terrible
Teenage
movies.
Mutant Ninja Turtles, that was early 90s, and that was comic book.
That was indie film. That's why it was so good. The first
Right,
one.
right.
The first one was an indie film. They were like, hey.
Of the decade.
But the movies that we really liked didn't really get there until the late 90s. Like we're talking like 97 and on. Like that's when those movies for us came out. Because like we're talking even Star Wars Phantom Menace, we're talking The Matrix, we're talking Pulp Fiction.
Well,
Pulp Fiction was early.
Pulp Fiction was 94.
Yeah,
it was mid.
So
Matrix and Star Wars late, like right at the tail end.
Yeah.
Because Matrix was 99.
Yeah.
As was
Star Wars
Star
was
Wars.
90. Wasn't it 98?
98.
Didn't they do 98, 2001, 2004?
I thought
Star Wars is 99 because it's 99, 2002, 2005.
Oh, okay.
Remember,
okay.
every Star Wars film before Disney took
already.
over was 3 years apart.
Yeah.
And then Disney was like, nah, dude. One
So
every year.
so as far as movies go, if you were to pick like, I guess you could say maybe the 90s was full of guilty pleasure movies. Maybe, obviously the 90s saw the rise of chick flick movies like Pretty Woman, Richard Gere, Julia Roberts. But
Is that a chick flick movie, really?
Yeah. I don't think it's a rom-com, but it's definitely a...
It's
it's very much a chick flick.
Well, hold on. If you know the plot of that film, right?
Very much
Guy
so.
picks up
but
a
it's very-
woman of the night and then falls in love with her.
Right. So I mean,
Basically,
that's not necessarily to me. Chick flick.
it's still a chick flick movie.
I guess
man.
in the
Come on.
I guess in the romancing part of it.
come on,
you
man.
Damn near that was early 50 Shades of Grey.
Wow.
I don't know if we
Think about it.
Wow.
Think about it. I ain't saying he was tying her up and like doing bondage and nothing crazy with her. But if you really think about it, that movie is not really. It's like, dude, all right, I'm this rich dude, and I'm going to pick up this like you said, lady of the night, being nice, and it's just like, dude, what the hell?
Right.
You're a rich dude. Go to Bora Bora and hang out with some people or something.
All right, cool.
I think Judge Dredd wasn't.
So we do have plenty in the chat.
yeah.
They're going off. They're going off. So,
Oh God, Dolph Punisher.
Dolph Punisher. I love that movie. I did. Like I said, there was
I
plenty
need to
of
watch that
there was
one.
still plenty of really bad movies, but there were guilty pleasures. Dolph Punisher is definitely one of them for me.
That was 80. That doesn't count. That was 89.
Oh, okay. All right.
Hold on. Sharita Jackson said yes, but Blade is the best, or other than Anne Rice. She must be. Wait,
She's
okay.
talking about
vampire
movies in
vampire.
general? Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Oh no! Don't bring that one up, Mr. Martin.
I've seen it. I've seen it. Shut up.
On this
I've
panel
seen it.
Just saw that.
I've seen it.
a year and a half ago.
I've seen it. So you know I hold that over my head. I've seen it. So anyway,
we forced you to watch it.
Yeah, but
it took
it was good.
Alien coming all the way from at the time Florida,
And I did it for her.
Well, that's a shame.
I did it for her. She was in town.
Dude, your boys that you've known for over 20 plus years told you to watch this movie. You just nope.
Okay. All right. Whatever. So in the 90s, obviously we had, some people were saying we had Austin Powers.
Yep.
Austin Powers was a movie. So, also we had Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
The first
the rise of Jim Carrey. I love the first one. I'm kind of like on the second one.
I like them both.
I enjoyed the second one because it was just like way more absurd.
It was way more absurd,
and it was like
wow.
Like the second one just had like that whimsical absurdity to it that just made it slightly better than the first one. Mm-hmm. So and it was just wild. That movie was just wild. Dude.
B. Harrison Martin's right. The most legendary movie came out in the 90s, Tombstone, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Val Kilmer.
Huckleberry.
Val Kilmer and Kurt Russell became legends in that particular film, man. They became outright legendary.
Jerk that pistol and go to work. I love it, dude. I love it. So
every bit of that movie was good. Go
yes,
ahead,
it was.
We could go on because you got like, though we were younger then and we watched these movies, Hook. I thought Hook was awesome. Amazing.
Hook was awesome.
Yeah. Most definitely. I enjoyed the Addams Family because they actually took something that was done like I didn't really care for it.
I
made it
I liked the Addams Family. I think I liked the Addams Family values better.
That one probably was better.
The Addams Family values to me was better.
You got The Professional that was also
Professional was great.
Jean Reno movie that was good. You got people in the chat. The Boondock Saints was great. The 90s was also, it seems like it's something that was like
the 90s had a lot, man.
A lot of top tier.
Mr. Rumorder said Denzel had a cyberpunk movie too. That was actually that was actually Russell Crowe's first movie.
Yeah, Virtual
Velocity. That was Russell Crowe's first movie.
Yep.
That was his first movie?
That was his first movie.
But that movie was great. I definitely had some terrible CG in it.
It did.
Well, again, most stuff did back
then.
Dated by speaking of terrible CG, what about the Lawnmower Man?
Oh, goodness.
Dude, that was terrible CG.
Pierce Brosnan in the early role.
Yeah.
But no,
all right, so we got to talk about TV.
We definitely got to talk about TV, but like real quick, though, the 90s definitely had a lot. I mean, Christopher Hartley in the chat brought up Street Fighter. Street Fighter is a guilty pleasure because there's parts of Street Fighter. Yeah, there's parts of Street Fighter that are just legendary and they're hilarious because of just how messed up the production of that film was. And in Mortal Kombat, the first one was good.
Yeah,
a lot of people should have. It's like no, that movie worked. Like what they did, the story they told, doing a tournament setup, it actually worked. So I'm gonna let y'all switch over to TV though.
Yeah,
go ahead, follow.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like when it comes to Street Fighter, like look, if not for Raul Julia, rest in peace, for him not pulling, if not for him pulling out an A+ performance in that movie, regardless of how trash it was, like it wouldn't be in the status it would be today, even with it being technically a Van Damme film. So it's
without a doubt.
Like it's like Raul Julia just had like some of like the best like acting and lines and everything, and then of course the most famous line of them all, it was Tuesday.
Yep.
So, Christopher Harkey is absolutely right. The 1-inch Hadouken.
Yeah, but no, the Street Fighter anime also came out in the 90s too.
It did. Now that was
insanely good.
That was perfection.
You know what is crazy about that movie? I remember before I was just starting to get into anime, renting like Ramen 1/2, Crying Freeman, which I still can't believe my dad let me watch that. They had the Japanese version of Street Fighter, the animated movie, and on the back they showed Chun-Li shower scene.
Shower scene.
But I didn't rent it because I was like a stickler of not reading subtitles back then. Look, I was probably like 11, 12 years old. I remember.
Subtitle tapes cost more.
Man. I watched Street Fighter the movie raw. That's how much I wanted to see that.
Yeah,
I watched it raw.
Very sanitary.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, and so unsubtitled, just straight up in Japanese, I watched it.
That horrible changed a lot
with that horrible soundtrack though. That soundtrack, the original Japanese soundtrack was not good.
Definitely the American one was a lot better.
Chains and all the stuff. Man, they hooked that soundtrack.
Yes.
That was one where the dub crushed the original. It was like
crushed it.
But yeah, let's just switch it over to TV.
All right, so switching over to TV. So the 90s had a lot of really great characters that came out in the 90s. A lot of great shows. Some in our genre, some not in our genre. One of the longest running shows of the 90s came out in the early 90s and lasted pretty much the entire decade. ER on NBC, which was absolutely a fantastic show. True. Then ABC, of course, basically revolutionized the idea of a sitcom must-see TV, type viewing with TGI Fridays.
Yeah.
When they had they were just churning out hits like left and right. They were churning out the Full House. Yeah. Well, actually, first it started with Perfect Strangers, Full House. Trying to think what was the other ones.
I know Family Matters came later.
Family Matters came after Perfect Strangers was over.
Step by Step was one of them.
Step by Step was one of them. Hanging
with Mr. Cooper.
Yeah,
I used to love that show.
Yeah,
I ain't gonna lie. I used to love that show.
There was a ton of shows.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, they used to churn out hits.
Because it wasn't Martin in the 90s?
Yeah, Martin
was the 90s.
He's Living Single.
Living
Single was Friends before Friends. They said they actually pitched Living Single, and they were like, "Nah, we don't want to do that." And then turned around and made Friends. Basically, Friends was kind of copied from Living Single.
Yep.
All right. No.
Spring of the Teenage Witch was also in the 90s.
Before we switch over to cartoons, because you know it's coming.
You're right.
Rock. I believe Rock was in the 90s.
Yes,
That show was so good.
Yes.
And the fact that they did an entire season live, that to this day, nobody has touched that accomplishment. Like, nobody in TV has touched that. Like, that is insane. To do a sitcom live like that is crazy.
I want to say Fox Network in general in the 90s was pretty revolutionary.
Yeah, in living color.
The thing is, because it was like after, Simpsons blew up, then after that, we wound up having Living Color, then Martin, then Living Single, New York Undercover, so X-Files, so on.
New York Undercover, man.
Yep.
Dude, that show was awesome. I love New York Undercover, dude.
There was a lot.
There was a lot. And speaking of cop shows, the current longest running, drama show started in the late 90s, Law and Order SVU, which is way surpassed the original Law and Order. Like, it is the most.
SVU is just good.
SVU is just legendary.
That's a really good show.
It's really great show. Really great show. So The Simpsons started in the 90s.
Yeah. Simpsons actually kind of started in the 80s.
Yeah, Tracy Ullman
show.
That's true.
Yep.
Buffy blew up in the 90s.
Yeah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, started in the 90s.
Yeah.
Married with Children.
Married with Children.
Okay.
There was a lot of really great ones. So
I think 21 Jump Street was in the 80s.
So tell me,
late 80s, I believe.
So tell me, before we move on to cartoons, right? Who do you think was the best character that originated in the 90s, that came out in the 90s?
Out of live
Steve
action.
Urkel.
Yeah, live action. Out of live action, just in general.
I will go out on the limb and say Jeffrey from Fresh Prince.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that one.
Interesting.
I wasn't expecting that
What's the
one.
reasons on that? I think I know, but go ahead.
Because of the simple fact that with him being the hired help, he basically had the best shade out of the entire show.
Without a doubt.
Like so it's just like, dude. It's like as I've gotten older, he's become like my favorite character on the series.
See, I'm surprised. I'm surprised you didn't go for Uncle Phil, man. You got your Uncle Phil on over there, man.
No. Look,
really?
look, Uncle,
Ain't nothing wrong with being Uncle Phil. That dude was rich and a judge.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Go ahead, sir.
listen, as far as TV dads go, look, Uncle Phil is up there. Like, don't get me wrong, but we're not talking about TV dads. We're just talking about like the person that just kind of hilarious. So now if we was talking about TV dads, that's it's just like, look, Uncle Phil.
Now here's the thing. Now Jeffrey was the apprentice to Benson, because Benson was basically Jeffrey before Jeffrey was.
Pretty
Jeffrey.
much was.
Benson was
Benson
no
never
joke.
Benson never wore the suit and tie.
No, he didn't. But Benson was a sarcastic mofo.
Yes, he was. I loved Benson.
Robert Guillaume did his thing in that show.
He was the man. I loved Robert Guillaume.
All right, but go ahead, Dido, or somebody else, because.
So for me, the best character that came out of the 90s it might either be between Urkel or Carlton.
Okay.
Like, dude, the Carlton dance for it to have lasted this
stuck on
long.
the Fresh Prince, all right.
Yeah, I mean, for the Carlton dance to have lasted this long, it just shows the effect that the character had on pop culture in itself.
Did he really develop the dance though?
Yes.
No, I mean, yes.
To me, it looks like that. Like
because it was heavily influenced from the Dancing in the Dark video with Bruce Springsteen. Like, that was heavily influenced in that dance. So
I'm
So
telling
him
you.
trying to sue Fortnite might be a little bit sketchy.
But Alfonso obviously put his own spin on it.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
With
He
him
did.
being like a naturally trained dancer, it's like
Right.
he put his
Okay.
own spin on it and it just took off from there. So it's
Yeah.
like,
He said he took it from Preem said he took it from Courtney Cox's dance move.
It's very possible.
So we got a lot of cartoons to get to.
Real quick, my favorite
Yeah.
out of the 90s, Zach Morris.
Zach Morris is trash.
Zach Morris.
Very good one.
Very
good one.
Zach Morris, I have zero problems with his manipulation because to me, it takes two people to be in a manipulation. It takes a manipulator and a manipulated. And if you manipulate it, that just means that you just got to be a little bit sharper.
My
a little bit,
He never let anything stand in his way.
Hell not.
Never.
Not
let
even a
anything-
teacher giving birth
Yep.
in the friggin'
He didn't
was,
care.
Dude,
of course not. He was a psychopath.
He was a psychopath.
Yeah.
He was a
And that's why he's governor of California.
Hell yeah.
And
I'm waiting for that. They need to hurry up with that. I need to see that.
Oh, you only
Zach
gotta-
Morris was awesome.
Only a couple more weeks.
That's
Just got-
fine.
Just got to wait.
Zach
for
Morris
and,
was a G.
and never mind this, right? The man could stop time
Yeah.
whenever he wanted.
Yeah.
Time out.
Had that big ass brick phone though. I mean, that's not his fault. I mean, that's all that people
Yeah,
had. at the time.
Cody
That ain't
from
about brick
Step by
phone.
Step. Hell yeah, Cody would whip ass because he was the kickboxer part
I
2.
don't want to hear that.
Kickboxing part 2.
Yeah, whatever. Cody from Step by Step.
Cody was Michael Bernhardt,
I
Yeah.
think he was in
Sasha
kickboxing.
Mitchell.
the guy
Yeah.
that plays Zero in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
and also Agent Brown in
No, he was
no.
no. He was Sasha Mitchell.
It was
Sasha Mitchell. Okay,
yeah.
that's right. Michael Bernhardt. No, Michael
Kickboxer.
Bernhardt did take over it for one of those, but I don't remember. Maybe I don't know. Whatever.
Blood-
So Michael
Bloodsport.
Bernhardt was
It was
that
Bloodsport.
reminds me
Bloodsport
Kombat,
Part 2?
Mortal Kombat. What was
Not
that?
kickboxing.
Was that
The
Armageddon?
Conquest.
Conquest.
Yeah.
Conquest was also in the 90s.
Yep.
Follow Marvel over there saying it's Bloodsport. Was it Bloodsport Part 2?
It was the
I think it was Bloodsport.
Yes.
Yeah, Bloodsport
Yes,
was.
that's what it was.
Daniel Bernhardt took over in the Bloodsport sequel.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Three
Right,
sequels
right.
after that
Okay.
movie.
That's right.
Yeah, and they were all pretty
Wait, you
bad.
said 6 sequels?
Yeah, they did a lot.
Oh my gosh.
They
Well,
did. Van Damme walked. Yeah.
2 was actually okay. Like I didn't mind 2, but the rest of them after that was kind of like.
All right.
We got to quickly do cartoons because it's about to be Power is Yours.
Yeah, it really is. So I was going to bring this up for the 90s, right? So the 90s had two pretty dominant programming blocks that existed back in that day. You had Fox Kids, and you also had Kids WB. Fox Kids pretty much ruled the roost for the majority of the decade, but later on, Kids WB came around like 96, 90, 95, 96-ish, whereas Fox Kids started to fade away because Fox went to being a national network instead of a syndicated one. So Kids WB so Fox Kids kind of faded away. You had awesome cartoons, obviously, Batman the Animated Series, X-Men the Animated Series, Spider-Man the Animated Series, Bobby's World. So, but yeah, we can talk about this more during the Power is Yours and debate the merits of which cartoon block was better versus the other.
The power is yours!
Yeah, we apologize for that because obviously we had a lot of movies and TV to get to talk about.
There was a lot of good movies
It was
in
a
the
lot of
90s.
really good movies, a lot of really good TV
All right,
shows that came
Chris,
out. So.
Chris Harkley brought up Cartoon Network, and Cartoon Network did in fact start in the 90s. if I
It
remember
did,
correctly.
but
Back then, it only had the old, like,
They had, like,
Ed
Looney
Zooms
It was
and-
old stuff, but
Yeah.
but again, come on now, you can't have Adult Swim without Cartoon Network, so it had to start somewhere.
Okay, yeah,
It
that's
had to
true.
Start somewhere.
That's true.
There's nothing wrong with that. But
no, that's true. Was it did Toonami start in the 2000s or was that
Yeah,
late
Toonami
90s?
is definitely 2000s.
okay.
The whole thing was he
When
was
I
a
found
futuristic looking
love.
alien.
Oh, look who joined the show late.
Oh, wow.
Better late than never.
Tom
King
was
Amarak, what's
great.
up, man?
Tsunami was amazing, but
But was it the
upset with you guys
90s?
not to-
But was it the 90s though? That's the deal. Was it
Well,
was it the
okay,
90s?
if you want to talk
Yeah.
90s, there was something important that happened that I saw no one mention at all during this whole thing, and that was Parliament's Cosmic Slop.
Okay.
I don't know of that.
Can't
Okay.
say I recall it,
Cosmic
sir.
The
Slop.
Parliament. You know who the Parliament is.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah,
who that is.
George Clinton.
They
George Clinton.
had- he had a space anthology.
Yeah, I know, but I never really liked his music.
Oh God! As an artist, he caught me off guard. But that was one of the weirdest things I'd ever seen.
Are you
that
serious
was like
right now?
'94.
You never liked George Clinton?
Nope.
You said Cosmic Slop?
Really?
I said it was released in
Slop was okay.
'73.
Atomic
I have to
Dog?
bring something around really quick. Now,
Wow.
Darkwing
Toonami
Duck. There
did
you go,
start.
Guy Gardner.
Toonami started in '97. So
Oh, you know what?
Oh, okay.
I've done a disservice to cartoons altogether by completely leaving out the Disney afternoon shows from the 90s.
That's kind of wondering, when he was going to
like
fix that.
that's definitely something I left out. Shame on me.
DuckTales, I mean, come on.
DuckTales, Tailspin, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers.
Still one of the best theme songs.
Wasn't there something about Chip
DuckTales
and
is
Dale?
'80s though.
It is, but I'm talking
But
about
it was still part of the Disney afternoon though.
Yeah, most definitely was.
And it didn't even end its run really until the 90s came around. So
Tailspin. Oh God, dog. Tailspin was so good.
yeah.
Darkwing Duck, I think, was like one of the best ones out of all.
Oh,
of them.
Darkwing Duck was without it, dude. Again, back to that. Every single theme song was great.
Yeah.
Disney had that track record.
So Christopher Harkey brings up Beast Wars.
Yeah, disgust.
I never really watched Beast Wars. My cousin did, and he said it was really good. And me being the Transformer fan from the '80s, like I look for, I didn't see another good Transformers, in my opinion, until Prime came out like a few years ago.
Agreed.
And Prime, to me, I think is the best series. The new one is really good too. I'm more into the more mature of the stuff, and that Beast Wars probably was.
We were all poor with basic cable, so not a lot of us had Disney Channel. This is true. Remember when Disney Channel used to be back behind that paywall?
Yeah, but that the Disney lineup came on like regular TV.
But that
I
was
watched
only on
that.
Saturday. That was only
No,
on Saturday.
dude, it came on after
regular
school.
TV.
That's true.
It came on like
in syndication.
In syndication,
In syndication,
because I
that's
used to watch Aladdin, I used to watch Darkwing, I used to watch all that stuff. And I also remember, even though it wasn't part of it, I remember either before or after Beetlejuice that came on.
Oh goodness,
That
Beetlejuice.
cartoon didn't make no goddamn sense.
So
Right.
I'm gonna ask. Actually, you know what? I need time for this one. So you guys keep talking about this one. I'm gonna bring it up real fast while we have a few minutes left.
Biker
Mice from Mars. Oh my goodness.
That was just another trying to be like Teenage
Here's
Ninja
why I
Turtles.
didn't like Beast Wars, and it goes back to something that Dido said. I'm an old G1 fan, and when I first saw Beast Wars, I'm like, hell no.
Like
this
animals.
It's like no. Is Optimus Primal? Like no. I know Prime is a truck. Period. That's why I was like looking at that show, and I hated the animation. So it was just there was a lot of things wrong with that show for a diehard G1 fan. So I just nope. And remember that one time when they tried to I think it was like mid 90s. They had that Transformers that they was rerunning old G1 episodes.
The transitions?
It's like, dude, like you guys are cutting out parts of the episode for this transition. This is stupid.
I couldn't stand that freaking transition.
That was terrible.
The only thing that I would say about Beast Wars, because I grew up on Beast Wars, so like I like the show, but what did that show a disservice in its entirety was when they did that sequel season, which was that sequel
Beast Machine
show, whatever it was called. It was trash.
All right, that's
you know what?
That was the one that was.
You know what? I kind of can't do it.
We didn't talk about the God darn it, it's losing me now. It was also a bad CG show reboot.
Oh God!
Yes.
Get away!
Reboot was great. What?
Get away!
Reboot was awesome. What's wrong with you?
Whatever. Here's the thing about me. I understand that CG was bad in the 90s, but I can't look at stuff that's just that bad. It's like it was just bad. Couldn't even enjoy watching it. I didn't care what they was doing. It was just not fun to watch. But Sharita Jackson brought up
concept of reboot.
The concept was great, but no.
I was young when I saw it, so the CG didn't really bother me. I was just like, "Holy crap! I love this story." Kind of deal. The reboot of reboot actually wasn't bad. I watched that too.
Well, I was seasoned by then, so I didn't really.
I used to watch
this guy.
Like real people.
So just
it's
to answer Barris and Martin's question in YouTube, I was born in '85, so I was like pubescent in the '90s. So.
All right, now Sharita Jackson, if you could scroll back for me real quick, sir, somebody, because I missed what she said. She said something really interesting. It was about I think SWAT Cats and Duckman. I think that's what she had mentioned.
SWAT Cats went straight to syndication.
But she say it don't matter. That's
Yeah.
what she
No,
enjoyed
that's
that show.
Now-
and Duckman. There it is right there.
Someone did bring up the USA
Toonami in
Saturday
98.
Morning Block,
In animated.
which was listen. If you guys remember the USA Saturday morning block, and where we had Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Savage Dragon, Star Wing Commander. Now, I think the only ones that were good in that scenario was probably Savage Dragon. I can't remember.
Oh God, I remember when
Street Fighter.
Yeah, when they tried to
Street
do
Fighter.
that image block, and they was trying to get all them image cartoons done. I'm like,
that brings up the old Malibu and Ultra Force thing too. Yeah,
go ahead, Fallen.
But no, like I just looking back on it, like I still think about like how they literally tried to turn Mortal Kombat into the Justice League, basically.
They did.
Yeah, they pretty much did.
Who was it? It was Liu Kang, Raiden, and was Johnny Cage and Sonya?
Johnny Cage, and I think they brought in like
Was it Katana?
No, they brought in like might have been Katana. They brought in Sub-Zero.
Liu Kang was on the squad. Liu Kang was on the squad.
Oh goodness, Guy Gardner, WMAC Masters.
Yeah.
Goodness.
So I was actually about to ask a really silly question about which would you rather have, Kids WB or Fox Kids, but just reading through the list of the shows that Fox Kids had from 1992 on. It just ain't even a contest.
The Shadow Fall.
It ain't even a contest. Like the only thing they had in the first 2 years, the first year of Fox Kids, they had Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, Bobby's World, Fox's Funhouse. They had Fox's Peter Pan and the Pirates, which was an awesome show, by the way.
Yeah.
Pigs, Birds, Pigs, Tom and Jerry Kids, Zazu You, what in the hell that was. And then year 2, that's when Beetlejuice came along. Beginning with season 4, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures, Little Shop, I guess best on Little Shop and Horrors, Tasmania.
Tasmania was awesome.
Yep. Year 3, that's when Batman came in, Eat the Cat came in, George of the Jungle, Super Dave, Daredevil for Hire came in, and the X-Men came out. Like, and it was just like just year after year. And then Kids WB, its early years, it was just like trash, just nothing but completely trash.
The Wolverine Solid X brought up Captain N. I'm trying to remember if that was
90s. That was 90s.
That
was
1980s, dude.
No, it was 1990.
No, that was 80s. No, that was 80s.
Well, let's see. The Super Mario
80s.
Brothers Super Show had the Zelda thing, and then
that
Captain N
80.
was on Saturday.
It lasted into the 90s, but it came out in 89.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Tommy Styles with the Tick. The Tick was that deal. The Tick was such a cool show, just as far as a cartoon goes, man.
James Bond Jr. Sorry to interrupt.
No.
Throw that in the trash. James Bond Jr.
Sharita might.
I'm glad you like James Bond Jr.
Sharita might just be mentioning that they exist.
They do
on that
exist.
particular channel.
It does exist. Sorry to interrupt. Please.
Sorry, the WWF wrestling cartoon show is way too old. That's 80s, brother.
Yeah.
That's 80s. But now, this is almost time to wrap it up. But real quick, going back to what we was talking about, I kind of enjoyed watching.
He about to say something embarrassing. I just know.
No,
it.
not really.
Yeah, he is. What is it?
I mean, Captain N was awesome and Zelda was awesome. So. I just hated Mega Man on that show.
Oh yeah, Mega Man was terrible. I didn't like Seven Belmont either.
Yeah, Mega Man he sounded like a freaking had a frog in his throat, and he was green. I'm like, why is he green?
Honestly, I hated all the side characters on that show. Kid Icarus was terrible. Mega Man was terrible.
Yep.
Simon was terrible.
Simon was hilarious.
Like Princess Lana and Kevin,
Yeah.
they were fine. I can even mind, Duke the Dog.
Well, most people like Princess Lana because it was freaking what's her name?
It was Kelly Kapowski in cartoon form.
Exactly.
That's literally what it was. It was Kelly Kapowski in cartoon form.
See, she was just acknowledging the existence.
Okay, you were fine. And
Oh, Mighty Max, yes.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, man.
Well, yeah. All y'all in the chat, we appreciate all of this.
Yes.
Y'all jump into the Facebook group, or once we get our Discord, really gonna have to continue these big conversations in the Discord. So.
Yeah. Cameras up, everybody. We're gonna get ready to end the show. So,
Blonde hair Belmont. Simon is blonde sometimes in the game. Depends on the game.
yeah, he is. Yeah, Simon is blonde usually. Yeah.
no.
So,
Maybe it's Trevor.
one of the things that I mean, honestly, like he said, we're putting together a Discord, to have a bigger community of all of us kind of getting together, talking, about topics just like this. But as he also alluded to, we'll go ahead and drop a couple of topics in the Facebook group so we can keep this conversation going, all of these conversations going, based on the show. Also with a link for you to be able to watch the replay of this one. So next week's show, as I alluded to earlier in the show, is going to be all about the consoles wars from the 1990s. We're talking the NES versus
not just the 90s.
Well, yeah.
They continue on even now.
Sure, absolutely. Because the day after that show, the PS5 drops, and I'm gonna have my PS5 peripherals in studio next week. Like I'm going out and getting them, and I'm gonna have in there. I'm gonna be having them ready.
Sure you're not gonna drop them?
I'm very sure they're gonna still be in their boxes.
I just came before the show started. I just came from paying off Miles Morales and Demon Souls. So
okay.
Oh, Demon Souls, you brave, sir. You brave. Okay, I see you.
I'm gonna put myself through it. Like
okay.
I kept debating, but yeah.
All right, I see you. So anyway, next week we're going to be talking all about the console wars, their history, and why they're still raging on today, to the chagrin of some people. Dido.
I don't think it should be raging on. They're stupid nowadays.
No. You always have to have conflict.
Always have to.
You can have conflict, but your conflict is made up nowadays. Back when the Super Nintendo Genesis, and we'll get more into it, it was actually being there. But today's age, it's stupid because they both look the fucking same.
Hey, man.
Guarantee.
Listen.
You couldn't tell the goddamn difference.
It is no different.
You didn't know which one it was.
It is no different than the current.
It's made up today, and we'll get into it next week.
Than the current political environment that we exist in today. It's all partisanship. We'll get into it next week, everybody. We hope that you will come back and join us. If you did enjoy today's show, consider becoming a patron of Culture Junkies. We have 3 different tiers for you to choose from. Hop on over to patreon.com/Culture Junkies. It's as low as $1.
There's a link in the chat.
There's a link in the
Click
chat.
it.
So we want to thank everybody for joining us this week. We're very happy to entertain you. For my friends GQ, the Great Adakuji, Fallen Marvel, and the late but still appreciated King Amarak, I'm Kishiro. We'll see you guys next week.
How you gonna just leave out giving a shout out to DeMarcus Smith, Fab Nerd Life, and the Net? You're supposed to get them shout outs to them patrons, them Culture Junkies.
I could have swore that was your. Never mind. You know what?
You didn't even say their names.
Never mind.
Hey, apologies to those Culture Junkies level patrons that didn't get their shout out, but I'm doing a shout out for you because
Yeah, because you're great like that.
Well, I'm
Yeah, you're great like that.
I was born that way.
I have nothing else to say. Good night, everybody.